But
The following is a production of TeamBoydTV.com. The Black and Blue Podcast.
We're rolling hard and we're headed to the house just to get a taste of the Carolina pride. We're rolling. 995, 77 South. We're rolling hard and we're headed to the house just to get a taste of the Carolina pride. We're rolling.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, Big Q, Team Boy TV Turbo. Tonight I'm bringing you guys a special presentation of the Black and Blue Podcast. We're going to be looking into the Greg Hardy situation and things like that. Tonight, I am joined by two of Panther Nation's finest. I got the Professor, Anthony Dunn, from Cat Chronicles.
What's up?
What's going on, bro? You doing all right?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for letting me be on the show tonight.
Yes.
I'm excited to join you guys. So the professors, hopefully here, are not going to make too many people upset.
You know how hard that is, right? You know what I mean? I also have new first time on the program, Mr. Jason Apple from Black Cat Playback. What's going on, big homie? What's going on?
hey, what's happening, Big Q? Been looking forward to this for a long time.
I know, right? This should be fun. We've had several conversations on the different platforms that I guess we all have about this situation, but it'd be nice to have a nice little round table discussion about it and everything like that. Listen, first, Jason, let me ask you something real quick. Thinking about everything from early in the summer to now, knowing everything that you know right now, what's your overall thoughts on what's going on right now?
Well, I guess who best summed it up, I heard Marty Herney the other day. He was on the radio, and he had some interesting thoughts where he said, for too long, too many people have been making business decisions, and that starts from the league and works its way down to the clubs. And, Goodell, the one thing he's good at is making his owners money, and that's why they're so very happy with him, and rightfully so. And so that developed into a real pattern of slaps on the wrist for these types of incidents. And really there wasn't enough attention being brought to this issue.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. It's one thing I was like, people were talking earlier, a couple days ago, like they wanted Roger Goodell fired and stuff. But as long as Roger Goodell is making the kind of money for the NFL owners that he's making, I don't think the commission is going anywhere. Tony, what's your thoughts on the situation, man?
I've struggled with this a lot, to be honest. Football is something that I really love. Strangely, it's a game. And so I think that has a lot to do with it to me, is that I view this as kind of a recreational pursuit. It's something that I kind of relax to and enjoy for mere pleasure. So when you bring these aspects into it, which are part of it. So, we can't separate them from this game. You can't separate the business from it. You can't separate the social issues that are involved. It kind of makes it stressful to me. And I know that, this is something we really need to discuss. It's something that's part of it. But when we're talking, like you guys mentioned, is how much of a business this is that's what it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be a business, but what it has done is become such a big part of our society, of my life personally. The fact that I run a website, that I have 2 podcasts that I take care of, I put a lot of personal investment in this. And so, this, what it does is it makes it more important than just a game.
Yes.
The NFL has become more important to American culture than the game. So that makes these issues more important.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. And I also think that with all this extra attention being drawn to the this domestic violence situation, because I don't know whose situation came up first. Was it Rice or was it Hardy? I can't remember. I know they both were early in the summer, but it's taken away. Like the start of this football season, we were all like super excited at this long, drawn out off season, and then when we finally got football, it was like overshadowed by all of this stuff, and I was slightly disappointed, especially like the week one festivities. It was like this dark cloud was kind of hanging over the NFL, and it kind of took a lot of the joy that I was anticipating away from me. Jason, what'd you think about that? Like, did you feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. We talked about this in our last episode over at CarolinaProFootball.com, and it really is entertainment. It's an escape, as we touched on earlier, and it feels like, we talked about the business aspect of this. The media and the press served a role in pointing this out, and that's good. But we know what happens when things get hyped up. When the fire starts up, they throw gas on it. And then that starts injecting all kinds of people and all kinds of things that don't have any place in the game. Absolutely. And then it turns into a caricature and parody, and all the real human issues and the solutions that might come out of something like this are really lost in the background and lost in the ruckus. And I really resent it, to be honest with you, because it feels like the NFL is under siege. Yes. And I'm starting to feel like it's just gone way too far, and things that are being drawn comparisons to that they don't have any business. Ray Rice and Greg Hardy are two different things.
Yes, I agree with that completely. And I think that's something that has gone understated throughout all of this, because they're limited to the 30-second soundbite. Mm-hmm. Is that the Greg Hardy? Not to say that there are not cases of domestic violence, but not every murder case is the same. Right. Not every case of shoplifting. And so, yes, while they fall under the same genres of legal problems, to just draw a direct parallel is kind of, I think, sloppy.
But that's the thing, though, because the NFL shows that I do, they like, you guys are kind of Carolina Panthers, centered, and mine is a little bit broader, covering most of the entire NFL. And the things that I come across is like, people will say, well, you Panther fans are thinking that you are above, Ravens fans, or, make it seem like we're trying to put our situation in a different category, when they believe that if Ray Rice can get punished and get the same type of, situation that he's going through, that Greg Hardy should go through the same thing. And I 100% agree. I think the difference is Greg Hardy has been to court. Greg Hardy has been convicted of some nonsense. Ray Rice has yet to go to court. You know what I mean? But there's video footage on one Ray Rice. Right. You know what I mean? So, like, it's one of those situations where, as a fan, you sit back and you think, like, wow, they're deactivating my guy because of some stuff that was going on over there. You know what I mean? And that kind of infuriates me a little bit. It's crazy. But let's look into the story real quick. Tony, I know you guys, you and your partner, Joey, y'all guys covered. Y'all had a real good segment on one of y'all shows when the story first broke. And even the follow-up was actually pretty good. Right now, as it sits with the deactivations and stuff rolling out, what's your take on where we are right now with the franchise tag on Greg Hardy, and he's deactivated at the moment? What's your take?
All right, before I jump into that, I want to mention one thing about what you said about, like, are you disappointed that all this happened and how it took away? What's interesting is me and you had a couple of episodes, one on Black and Blue podcast about Steve Smith. Yes. We did a lot of coverage about free agency and, because that's what you're supposed to do in the preseason. And I remember you saying something like, you guys you get so worked up about all of this.
Yes.
Don't you wish we could have gone back to that?
Yes.
You know, like
if that's what it was all about, you know, with all the wide receivers leaving and the free agents and look, I would take that over this nonsense any day. You know, what I mean?
Okay, so with Greg Hardy in this is that Greg Hardy has been put on the commissioner's exempt list, which I got put on it 2 days before.
Right.
So obviously this list is for somebody that you know, can't necessarily suspend a player, but doesn't want to play them.
Right.
And then also because I think by the current Players Association Union agreement, the CBA. Agreement that they strike with the NFL, that you cannot deactivate a player unless it's performance based, or I think that's it. And so, you know, you can't do it for, you know, just you can't blackball somebody off a team and pay them despite that and prevent them from going to another team.
Right.
So this is kind of like uncharted territory in many ways.
Yeah, it really is.
I'm trying to think of a player that this has happened to before in the past, and I know there's got to be one out there where something similar happens, but I cannot remember it off the top of my head.
Absolutely.
I think one thing I do want to point out, though, is that when everybody says that Greg Hardy has been convicted, right?
Yeah.
I
mean, that word is a little strong, but yeah. You know?
Yeah, is that domestic violence kind of fits into a unique box in the American legal system. So essentially it's like this, is that if I got in a fight today with somebody has to get arrested. It's or if you get in a car accident, you know, somebody has to get a ticket, even if it's unclear if somebody was at fault or what happened. And this is particularly the case with domestic violence issues, is that if the police are called, they have a responsibility to separate these people, and in that process is usually done through an arrest.
Right.
So I think Greg Hardy was arrested the next day or something like that. And so I think that when, you know, he hasn't had a real trial yet, and I would go as far as to say that the national media misuses this terminology of him being convicted as being more than it was.
Right.
So right now what we got a player that was due $13 million this season that we are obligated to pay because the franchise tag is like that. I mean, and now we have all this ruckus and we got to pay him.
Yeah. And
we don't know what to do with him.
That's ridiculous. And check this out though, right? So, you know, we franchise tag this guy, and in the wake of all of that stuff, we lose Steve Smith, right? And now Greg Hardy is deactivated, and Steve Smith is still pissed off about it, right? So Jason, in the wake of all that, I mean, where does that put us, man? I think that the rest of the NFL is laughing at us right now. You know? On you, Jason.
Well, they can laugh, but we're 2-0, okay?
Right,
so
right.
And about to be 3.
That's right, about to be 3. So, you know, I think it would be a lot worse if we were losing. But it seems to me that all of the predictions and all the things that people were laughing about and really questioning about the Panthers, some of them were definitely I was concerned about. For instance, offensive line and things like that. Steve Smith, of course, was a little bit of a concern of mine, but I mean, all of that came to nothing.
Yes.
So everyone's making these big predictions about, you know, the downfall of the Panthers and how they were always, you know, they're the biggest slider on our list, etc. That didn't happen.
Right.
So, I mean, you can't laugh at a winner. You're undefeated.
That's
and there's
right.
only 7 teams in the NFL undefeated. So, you know, take that. That's the way I feel about it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You know, and the thing that I find the most odd about this, and this is what the part that me and, you know, one of the co-hosts on my show, my brother JB, we kind of got into this tiff about. Greg Hardy gets in trouble, right? And, you know, he did what he did or whatever's been reported, right? Because I wasn't there. But whatever's been reported. And, you know, he's going through his legal process. The coaches, the Panthers, they kind of backing off of him and letting him do his thing. And then all of a sudden, Ray Rice gets into a little bit of a trouble and everything. And then Adrian Peterson gets in trouble. And now everybody focuses their attention back to Carolina. And they're forcing Jerry Richardson and Ron Rivera's hand and I think I read where Greg Hardy kind of agreed to do this too, right? So now he said, and I'm thinking to myself, like, why does what they're doing in Minnesota or in Baltimore, why is that affecting what we're doing here in Charlotte? And at the same time, I look at Jim Harbaugh out in San Francisco. Came out on TV and he was talking about how he couldn't stand domestic violence and it was a bad thing and they wouldn't be tolerated. But he also was a firm believer in due process. And then I look around and through 2 weeks of the NFL play, Ray McDonald was still playing and ain't nobody saying nothing about it. How you fellas feel about that?
I want to ask you a question, Big Q. Mm-hmm. And let me just ask you this: have the Carolina Panthers handled this situation poorly?
To be completely honest with you, I believe that it starts at the top. I think the NFL in general has made blunder after blunder after blunder with the situation, and it all rolls downhill. When that second tape of Ray Rice came out, forced Ozzie Newsome and Steve Bisciotti's hand. They had to cut ties with Ray Rice, and so now this public outcry about domestic violence. And I mean, everybody's they kind of shunning it. They're like, well, you know what? Well, we got this guy Greg Hardy on our team. We got to do the right thing. We got to deactivate this guy. I don't agree with it, but I mean, if it was me, I would be like Jim Harbaugh. I would still be playing my guy until he found himself in jail. He would have to fulfill his contractual obligations to my franchise. That's the way I felt about it. What about you, Jason?
I think this is one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations.
Right.
And there is no win to this. And in some ways, I want to say the media has been jackasses about all of this, and that they have taken it too far. But in other ways, I think what we have done is we have made professional football so important to our society.
Absolutely.
That it's not like it was 50 years ago or 30 years ago. Is that when you have Budweiser putting $1 billion in advertisement, $1 billion freaking dollars in advertisement, is that, it's not, when you are an NFL player, you are not just a athlete.
Right.
You are more than that, whether you like it or not.
You're an asset.
You are a representative of a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I don't find, at some point I kind of understand, why stuff like this has to happen. But what I don't like is I think that this is where we've come into a conundrum with the NFL, with these types of issues, is it a matter of legality, or is it a matter of what the NFL and society can tolerate?
Yeah. And I'm gonna turn that one to you, Jason, and I'll comment on that one. But yeah, and that's a good question. I like that one. So what do you think, Jason?
Well, I think if you look at the way the Panthers normally operate, Jerry Richardson, he's all about protecting the shield. He's all about standing behind the shield versus what he might personally prefer.
Right. And
if you look at sort of read in between the lines of what Ron Rivera and Dave Gettleman have said, at first they handled it like it was any other disciplinary issue.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let the league do what they do, and we're going to stand back. And if we feel we need to do something else, then we're going to. Well, that kind of spun out of control, and the league, kind of had whiplash with what they were doing. So it really felt like with Dave Gettleman's conference call, he basically said there was contact. Yeah, after a long pause, he said that. So that tells you everything you need to know. The NFL said, hey, and you also hear the Ravens, you hear the Panthers, they all have the same talking points. Hey, we have to get this right,
get it right,
et cetera.
So
that tells you that the NFL is coming down and say, hey, we all need to be singing from the same hymn book.
Absolutely.
And Jerry Richardson's all about that.
Yes. And and as much as I think that is probably the best direction to go in, I also feel like it leaves the fans kind of in the dark, right? Because first of all, we all got the wool pulled over our eyes with the Ray Rice situation. Now I saw the Outside the Lines report, and now NFL is disputing everything that ESPN said. So who's telling the truth here? What's going on? Did the Ravens actually try to protect Ray Rice? I don't know. You know what I mean? And did the same thing go down in our organization? Did the Carolina Panthers try to protect Greg Hardy? who knows? You know,
I think that it's clear that the Ravens tried to a certain degree to protect Ray Rice, and that's kind of a tough word to use. You know, I mean, did they do anything unethical or dishonest? I don't know about that.
Right.
I don't think that they were necessarily going to try to use him as a moment to take a moral stand on society, though.
Well, you know, I saw a quote that came out though that said that at one point that the Bisciotti had told Ray Rice, and you know, and during his support that, you know, after football he had a job with the. I mean, come on, man. Is that if that's not protecting this guy? I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, what is he gonna do? Work the elevator?
I don't know. He didn't. He wasn't clear about it. He wasn't clear about it. He, you know, janitor position. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. You know, but at the end of all things, Jason, this is what it comes down to. Carolina, you know, and Justin Worker in the Twitter box, he said it. Carolina is paying or sinking a ton of money into Greg Hardy, and there was already some situations, some smatterings during the offseason about what to do with Greg Hardy at the end of the season. Will he stay on as a Panther? Will he be released as a free agent? Is it going to be worth the hassle? Now, with everything that had happened, if you are Dave Gettleman and Ron Rivera and Richardson and the brass up there, how do you handle the situation after all the smoke is clear? Because for whatever reason, I feel like Hardy will be clear to this. I feel like he, out of all the guys who are in trouble right now, I think he will be the one that comes out of this, you know, the best with like the least amount of scratches. But what do you think?
Well, let's back up just 1 second. I think the person who has really surprised me most of this is Ron Rivera. He has handled it. I mean, my goodness, if you watch him in a press conference, he's been breathtaking to me. He has really kept things on the line, whereas it could spin out of control very easily.
Right.
I think looking at Gettleman, and I think looking at Rivera, it feels like if you're going to have to offer him big money to stay, I don't know how you trust his judgment. Not saying he did anything wrong, but what he did put himself in a bad situation,
yes,
and you know, up to this point, Greg Hardy's been fun crazy, right? And he's mixing with some other girl who's maybe not, you know, probably in the same boat that he is. That's not a smart decision if you're Greg Hardy.
Right.
You can't put yourself in that position. I mean, you know, you're trying to get your Kraken brand going, all this other stuff, and then, you know, now you're hanging out with this, you know, well, you're hanging out with someone who probably doesn't match you very well. You know, both of you are unstable. Sounds like both of you are volatile. That doesn't work at all. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know. But you know,
I want to jump in there, Big Q, because I think there's a lot to say about that, and I think Jason is right. You know, when we first talked about this, I think we had for some reason this had happened on the night that we were doing our shows, Big Q, because I felt like we discussed this early. Yeah. Like when the Greg Hardy stuff came out in May. You know what I mean? It was. And we didn't just like overlook it. We spent a lot of time on all of our shows discussing this. And I don't ever think I saw it getting this intense. No. But with that said, I agree 100% with Jason, is that even if Greg Hardy didn't just beat this girl down, you know, even if he wasn't in that back room slapping her around and telling her to get her shit together, even if it was like he was, like in the best possible scenario, calling 911, I got this crazy girl here, she won't leave. Yes, I've got guns in my apartment, but I ain't pointing them at nobody. That's the most perfect world. It was 3 a.m. She was doing cocaine. And it's hard to believe that just one person in a room is doing cocaine and everybody else is like, well, I'm an NFL player, so I'm just some wild stuff going on up in there while I watch. And you know, I mean, it goes all back, and we said this from the beginning, is that nothing really good happens after midnight. And how expensive of a weekend was this for Greg Hardy? Do you realize how much this cost him in potential money? He was building a brand, like Jason said, a cool, wacky, the Kraken, like little kids are gonna put me on Wheaties boxes and I'm gonna be with Harry Potter stuff, and then tackle somebody. But now, I mean, he's on the verge of having trouble finding himself a good spot in the NFL. And I've got two questions for you guys, and then I'm just going to pass it off. Is number one, can we really even re-sign him, even if it was cheap? Because Rivera and Gettleman and Richardson said, we've got to get this right. We've got to get this right. And there is the moral component of it. So even if we signed him for $1,000, unless we said we're not abandoning him to rehabilitate him,
Right.
To help instead of like letting go and just saying good luck, I don't see how we can re-sign him, even if it was cheap.
Right.
The second question I have for you guys is this. What would have happened if Greg Hardy never called the police? Would this have never been an issue?
You know what? I never thought of it that way, but if Greg Hardy had never called, you know what? It probably wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been, at least, because all we got really is old girl's testimony in the 911 recordings, right? That's all we really got. That's it.
And the crazy diva person downstairs is
right,
like,
yes.
He's beating her down, but they
right.
weren't even there.
Yeah, I don't know though, but domestic disputes like that happen on the regular, right?
Right.
People, they get into little discussions and they sometimes get out of hand. But I believe if his voice wasn't on that recording, this would be a different situation. Jason, what do you think?
What ifs like that are really tough. Who knows? I mean, she took off right after, when the cops came, so who knows what would happen. All right. That's tough to say, but I will go back to a question earlier. There's gonna have to be some team who's gonna willing to take a risk on Hardy, willing to pay him more money than what we would. And that's just because there aren't too many defensive ends out there that can do it by themselves.
Absolutely.
And that he's one of the up and coming premier pass rushers in this league.
Yes, he is.
So someone's gonna look past that and give him and back up the truck. Maybe not as much as they would have, but it's probably gonna happen. And it's sad to say whether he did anything or not. It's really more than anything. It's just a colossal waste of humanity on both sides. It's a waste of potential on both sides.
I 100% agree. And I feel like because he's not. If you look at the NFL landscape, he's not the guy. We believe he's the guy because of course that's our team. But I listen to every all the other fan bases. And they like Greg Hardy. Y'all keep talking about Greg Hardy. He's nobody. So, of course, if the Panthers let him go, somebody's going to grab him. But, of course, the pay scale going to start out low. I think a bidding war will ensue. I think eventually he'll get what he's looking for. The sad part about it, though, is that when I look at Greg Hardy, I see a Carolina Panther. Just like, with Steve Smith and Julius Peppers. But things happen, And sometimes, you got to move on,
Yeah, you don't see a Carolina Panther no more.
No, definitely not. Well,
I don't think so, man. I just don't see him
Smitty?
ever wearing a Carolina Panthers jersey again.
Who this, like Steve Smith?
No, Hardy.
I know, and that's the sad part about it. But I'm hoping. I don't know. But look, if corporate sponsors start pulling out, like they're doing with Adrian Peterson right now, then if I were the Carolina Panthers, I would be a little concerned. Okay, so you got who do we have? We have Krispy Kreme with the stadium.
Sweet Sweets. Yeah, so Bank of America.
Yeah, now if corporate sponsors start,
Bojangles is safe.
Yeah. But if big name corporate sponsors start pulling out, then that's different. But I don't know. I just think Greg Hardy is not that type of star as far as on the NFL landscape. He's no Adrian Peterson or Colin Kaepernick or this happened to one of those guys. Oh, we're going to full panic mode. But
what about this? What if the Carolina Panthers said this? Is that what if they said, look, we got screwed and we wasted a ton of money on you this season, and you screwed us. So, I mean, it's not like we probably weren't going to pay you before. And now you've made it even more difficult for us to pay you. Right. So what if the Carolina Panthers came out and said this? We are suspending Greg Hardy for the entire season. No matter what the thing is, with the pretense of they've already worked out with him that, hey, we lost money. We're going to give you a fair deal, but you ain't going to get the super money. Would that be enough for this to blow over? Because here's the thing is that no matter what people say, no matter what the NFL says about wanting to get it right, no matter about all of these things where two people, where like a newscaster can come on and tweet like the Panthers have an ultimate responsibility, blah, blah, and like trot in with the high horse. We all know at the end of the day, domestic violence is going to be a problem. NFL players are going to get in trouble. So really all you got to do is kind of weather the storm. It's not like Budweiser is going to stop advertising with the NFL.
Right. Well,
I mean, if
the NFL is super nervous about this kind of stuff, though. They are like, look.
Do you think they're faking it though? I think they should just fake it and just say, remember, at the end of the day, they're the NFL.
Right. You know what? I think that would be a mistake on the NFL's part, because I think we saw a little bit of that with Roger Goodell talking about wanting to have performers paid to be on the Super Bowl, and a little bit of this whole classic case of the NFL getting a little too big for his britches. And the NFL needs to understand why they have the success that they have is because of the fans and the culture that the NFL represents. They're about them sponsors, man. Budweiser, all those. Look, we gotta have those. But Jason, let me ask you this though. At the end of all things, I mean, we saw, for the at least last week anyway, because I think Greg Hardy did play in week 1, right? But we saw in the last week's game that we will be fine without him, right? We'll be okay with the new guys, Ely and Addison. They look like the Kraken wasn't even like a factor. Now I don't know if Greg Hardy played in that game with the intensity level been turned up a notch. I don't know, but the job got done, and that's all I really care about. What you think?
I think Detroit's right tackle, I think he was like 3rd string or something like that. He was out there flipping burgers almost, and you saw Mario Addison taking advantage of him. I'm going to be interested, and again, we're facing another team with a suspect offensive line, so I don't think we're going to know for a couple weeks exactly what the fallout is from Greg Hardy. I mean, we've seen before when one of those ends went out that we had trouble, but we didn't have the interior pass rush that we have now. So we may be okay. We may be able to piece it together. And you said that Greg Hardy was not a national celebrity yet, but I think he could have had if he would have played his cards right, he could have been a Richard Sherman type of guy. He has that same personality.
Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
He could have been that guy, but not anymore. So we're going to know in a couple weeks. We'll know a little bit more tomorrow, but I think his name is Richter. Is that the right tackle? He's had some he's had some big trouble.
Yeah, I think. No, they looked okay in the last defensive outing that they had. I was like, okay, well, I was worried. First, I was worried because Cam was playing, and I was like, I don't know if Cam should be playing, and I was worried about that. And then I was like, okay, where the very last, the 12th, at the midnight hour, they decided to deactivate Greg Hardy. I was like, oh crap, this is ridiculous. But everything worked out, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're that kind of team where things just happen to kind of work out for us. I don't know.
That's where this team is.
Yeah.
I want to jump in on that and say that I think Jason's got a good point on a couple of things. Is number one, that we won't know for a couple of weeks, because he's right. Detroit was starting a guy by the name, where he didn't start, but he ended up finishing the game. His name was Cornelius Lucas. He's from Kansas State University. And the only reason I know him is because we kind of followed him for a late round draft pick for the Panthers, as well as I have some family that went to K-State. So this guy is a beast of a man and could turn out to be something, but he won't ready then. So it's not like they went up against the top guy. I think another point to what you're saying, Big Q, is like how we can manufacture the same defensive pressure with this rotation. I think there's something to be said about that, because look, not to take away too much from Greg Hardy, but he plays on the other side of Charles Johnson. Mm-hmm. And Charles Johnson can make anybody look better. He eats up a lot of attention. The tackles, they're powerful. So it's not like Greg Hardy's on that team by himself doing that, getting 6 sacks.
Right. But you got to admit, though, he disrupts everything.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. And so this is what the most frustrating part about it is that, yeah, we might be able to get by with him. Yes, Charles Johnson might make him look better. But imagine this damn team with him.
Yeah.
We can't say that. We know that we're not going to be better on the field without him.
Right.
We know that we might be able to compensate, but not better.
Right. well, what if we switch gears for just one, for just the last part of the show, and we'll broaden the scope up a little bit. We mentioned, the Outside the Lines ESPN report on the NFL and Roger Goodell. We mentioned briefly, what was going on on the landscape. Starting with you, Jason. Listen, the NFL, what do they have to do? Because all we heard Roger Goodell talking about was putting together committees and teams and forces and hiring FBI agents and these women's rights activists, but nothing really concrete is being done. In your opinion, right, based on everything that we've experienced in the last 3 weeks, what do you think of the Roger Goodell and the direction that the NFL is heading in right now?
Well, I thought they started out very poorly. They reacted, and then they, had whiplash from the Ray Rice video, and I think they initially handled it extremely poorly. Oh yeah. They did not expect this. They're not used to getting coverage like this, so they were very much taken aback by that. I think right now what they're doing what any major company who gets caught out of doors like this does. And so they turn from someone who's reacting, and then they set up all these task force, they set up all these committees. They brought in a lobbyist. Mm-hmm. So then they become quote unquote thought leaders on this particular issue, and then eventually the media will leave them alone. I think they have their message now, and the press conference that Goodell had went some way. I mean, I know that he's lost a lot of trust. Yeah. But if you look at the polls, as far as the fans are concerned, they say, Goodell has support, he can stay. We're not running him out of town just yet. Mm-hmm. So I think they've found their footing, but this may end up, the way they reacted may end up biting the end, because when you react like this to some of the outside forces, you invite more of it. Right. In the sense that, when you have some of the outside forces come in and some of the activists come in with certain issues, if you react in a certain way, the way they are, you're really encouraging more of it, I think.
I think so too.
That may be something to look out for long term.
But the thing that I'm having the hardest time, kind of comprehending is the whole changing the rules, like day by day. Yep. Greg Hardy got in trouble. It's like, oh yeah, you're a bad boy, you're in trouble. You go to court and you handle your business, but everything else is good. No suspensions, no deactivations. You go to training camp, all this cool stuff. And then Ray Rice gets in trouble, and it's the same thing. Oh well, you know what? Let's just give him a 2-game suspension, calm everything down, and then his tape comes out. Adrian Peterson gets in trouble after the introduction of the player conduct policy. A couple days later, Ray McDonald gets in trouble, and then this week, a couple days ago, what's the guy's name from the Kansas City Chiefs? He gets in trouble with the same stuff. So is the message really getting landed home, Tony? Like, what's really going on? I mean, what do they have to do?
I think that what you've done is you've identified the part that bothers everybody, or actually football fans the most, and that is this. They just got, which way is the wind blowing today? Right. And, I call him the navigator. That's what I've been calling Goodell, is the navigator, because just wherever the wind's blowing, I'm going that way. And what I would just offer to you is that leadership is someone that knows which way the wind is going to go before it's turned. Mm-hmm. And so what you have to have is a vision when you're a leader. You have to have conviction, and you have to really, is what Roger Goodell should do right now, is he should say, hey, we have not done a good job. I've failed. The NFL has failed. These players have failed as citizens and as members of the NFL. And you know what? We're not perfect. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a clear stand. We're going to identify this. We're not going to overreact. We're not going to underreact. And we are going to take directed steps and thoughtful steps, rather than just saying, all right, well, CBS is covering us tonight and somebody on Fox News is talking junk about us. I hate when what's made me the most mad is the senators. Yes. Like 16 women senators wrote a letter, and I really don't have a problem with senators and politicians being advocates for issues. But don't act like to me that all of a sudden that this is something that's so important to you when what you should do is you should say, I failed as a politician for not making this a bigger issue in my day-to-day life.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. And, and it's funny because the NFL is so big and it's watched by so many people, and it's one of those entertainment mediums that is just really, really big. So if you're somebody who's trying to make a name for yourself in whatever area, these politicians, this is the time to do it. You know what I mean? This is the time to stand up and say, hey, listen, I do not approve of all this, child abuse, whatever the case may be. I don't know, Jason, like, I don't know. What do you think?
That's the part that really galls me more than anything is that, when the politicians get involved, it's beyond out of control.
Yeah.
And I think, going back, I think the reason it got out of control is because Goodell refused to let go of being the sole arbiter of discipline. And I think what he's finding out is when you're in charge, you're responsible.
Yes.
And if he would have let that go and had a committee, then you wouldn't see these wild, reactions, because they're basically just going off of Goodell's emotions or whatever he thinks. Well, a committee is going to be more deliberate, and the process is going to be transparent, and people are going to buy into it, and then you wouldn't have all this drama.
I 100%
and they would have
agree.
been more on point, more on message. But they're reaping what they sow at this point.
Absolutely.
That's an excellent point.
Yes,
and to note also, I think the NFL is the only place that doesn't do it like that.
Yep.
I mean, that does it like that, should I say, or doesn't have the committee where the commissioner plays this role.
Mm-hmm.
And so this seems like it's a procedural problem.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, this is rooted like deep within. Now, the last thing is Roger Goodell is Jason pointed out, he's trying to hold on to his absolute power and whatnot. Now we know, he's not going to be removed. So the ones who are suggesting that that's what's going to happen, I feel sorry for you. That's not going to happen. Roger Goodell has done too many good things for the NFL for something like this to kind of mess his whole. I think if something like this happens again, he may be in trouble. But for now, I think he's okay. But one of the things that a lot of people, especially after seeing Roger Goodell's press conference the other day, are having a hard time swallowing is, especially when ESPN call themselves exposing this whole situation. Look, whether you want to say so or not, Tony, I know you said it earlier about everything was ethical. Something is going wrong somewhere. So there's some dirty, mischievous, underhanded stuff going on. There's some favoritism being shown. I mean, you got the Steelers family and the Giants family guys back in the FBI. Is this the right way to handle this? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Well, I don't know what the right way is, but I can tell you what the wrong way is, and that is what the NFL has done to this point. I mean, it seems harder to picture an instance where it was done worse.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I don't know. I mean, I think this is at the end of the day what our frustration is for the whole reason Jason called this roundtable discussion in the first place, is that we understand, because we follow this so closely, that look, you can dump on the NFL and you can dump on these players, and who I've been a supporter of more than anybody is Josh Gordon.
Right.
And I feel like he was the one that I felt like this was the first instance. I feel like this is the same problem with Josh Gordon. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day is that people are upset with society. People are upset with what's going on in the world. And the NFL happens to be the easy thing to dump on at the moment. Yep. It's not like, because this crap happens everywhere. Yeah. And not that excuses it. It doesn't excuse it. But it's not like all this, we did this to baseball 10 years ago or whatever it was with the steroids.
Yes, we did. Jason, your thoughts? Oh, like this on the final wrap up on how you feel about the whole.
Now we got to talk about AP too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about AP. Yeah, that one was okay. Well, on this NFL as a whole situation.
Well, I'll just say that to me, this whole thing has just spiraled out of control, and I mentioned that this is all too many business decisions were being made. And, the press has been making business decisions based on this as well. And that's another point that Marty Herney had. They make a decision, certain press outlets, they've instructed the reporters, hey, take a strong stance on this. They're basically telling them to throw gas. And how does that help? How is that any better than what they're accusing the NFL of, which is, hey, you're just in it for the money, you're taking advantage of the situation, etc. One quick thing I'd like to note, domestic violence is, it's an endemic problem, and always, as long as men and women have been together, it's been an issue. But I would like to point out, just up the road at Duke University, they did a study on the crime rates for NFL athletes, and what they found, and this was about 4 years ago, something like that, what they found was that for domestic violence issues, an NFL athlete was half as likely to be involved in a domestic incident that's reported. Okay, that's reported. So, and that's the asterisk there for me. So, for the NFL, I think they really just got unlucky. And when it rains, it pours, and they're not going to stop covering it until it stops bleeding, essentially. So, that's something to keep in mind. That's not to say that the incidence is lower, but the reported rate is lower.
Right.
So, that's something to keep in mind when we hear all these reports.
Well, that was some good discussion on that. Now, we take care of this one. All right, so Tony, look, you've heard I did the Shield podcast, old Adrian Peterson, and there are so many layers to this story. There are so many different swaying opinions on this story that is like, I don't think anybody is right or wrong when it comes, because this one hits home. This one right here, like, because some people didn't grow up in a house where they saw domestic violence on a daily basis, kind of like I did. I mean, the whole Greg Hardy thing, it didn't surprise me. I was like, I've seen that. You know what I mean? And but everybody done had a situation where either they knew somebody or they went through it themselves, where a parent disciplining their kid may have went a little too far. You don't know, is this good parenting, or is this a lunatic, just going crazy on his son? You know what I mean? Because that's the way public.
Well, it's not good parenting. Well, I can tell you that.
Right, well,
but I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Is it discipline or is it abuse?
Yes.
I think here what we got to take in mind is that I've struggled with this stuff so much, man. Like, I've actually tried to not offer. Usually I'm the first person to say this is what I think. Yeah. And I've been trying to take in these things and listen to people a little bit more. And that's against my character in some ways. But, I think what surprised me the most about the Ray Rice thing, and I'm going to just connect this to Adrian Peterson, was it was far worse than I expected it to be. Even though, I saw the body coming out of the elevator, I don't know what I thought or what is that, but he jacked that chick right in the jaw. Yeah. He jacked her up. It wasn't like they got in a fight and he pushed her down or he pushed her up against the wall or something. Right. Jacked her up. Yeah. The same thing with so I was thinking about this, and I have 3 kids, Big Q. So this is an issue I think that is personal to me. And I respect this. I respect the idea that just because I don't discipline my kids in a certain way, I'm not big on telling people how to do their thing. Right. Like, as long as you're not messing with me, I'm not really interested in telling you how to do your show or come in here and do this. But with the Adrian Peterson thing, I was thinking this. I was like, man, is this an issue of us getting too involved with the parent and being, what they're doing? Because it is a slippery slope. It is. You start, disciplining and taking a stand on this. I've spanked my kids. I've never whipped them. Right. But I've spanked my kid a couple of times with my hands. But I would never even put that in the same classification as taking. I don't understand how you could whip a kid 10 times or whatever it was. It certainly won't 3 times.
Yeah, it was like 15, I think.
I don't know how you can't, in your mind, separate physical harm from that. Yeah. Is that with a 4-year-old kid, you were trying to hurt that kid. Yeah. Now, you might have been thinking that abuse, that hurt would do something and help them. But let me just say this. If somebody took my parking space and cut me off, and I pulled them over and I bent them over their car and whipped their ass with a stick like that, I can promise you that nobody would be like, "Oh, he's just disciplining that person," or you know, or if you saw him doing that to that 4-year-old kid in the park. Now, I wouldn't do shit because Adrian Peterson is huge as a mug.
right.
But I would be like, "Oh, well, he's just over there teaching that kid a lesson."
Right.
So I think that this is that, like, I don't want to tell people how to discipline their kids. I laugh when the voice said that mess about the timeout stuff.
Right. Is this 2014 timeout? Say that ain't.
But I don't care. That was a damn that was a slave whipping, man.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? And Jason, before I go to you on it, I'm gonna say this, and I've said it in the Shield podcast, and I've said it on live, and I've said it every chance that the subject came up. There is the biggest thing for me is the fact that Adrian Peterson is kind of, one of those guys who thinks that this is the way things are supposed to be. Like, I'm not saying that what he did was right. I'm just saying I understand his thought process, right? Because that's what I grew up seeing. That's what I experienced as a kid. And I don't know if it was me being as young as 4 was getting hit with a switch like that. But I understand that, in a lot of people's, especially Southern people, upbringing, there's a lot of switches, there was a lot of that going on, you know what I mean? And so some people can separate that. For me, when I got, I grew up, I was like, hey, listen, there's a lot of things that I'm gonna do different than my parents did. A lot of things. Not saying that they were wrong about anything, like Chris Carter said, not saying that they were wrong, it's just that we live in a different time. You know what I mean? And we don't have to do those things anymore. We don't have to resort to barbaric type discipline. It's 2014. It's not 1983 anymore. We don't have to do those things. And that's my.
The worst thing is that you just said 1983. Yeah. Like, I feel like that should be like 1870.
well, I'm just saying,
or 1930.
Well, I'm just saying 1983. In 1983,
you're right.
I was 5 years old, 6 years old in 1983. So I'm just saying
you're right.
That's what I'm thinking about.
I know.
What about you, Jason?
I think where you really get the I think where this is all coming from is a cultural issue, because you go far back enough in the country, man. It's 1983, it's 1973 still in the country. Things change a lot more slowly in the country, and the kid was 4 years old. I don't get that myself. Right. I'll put the caveat. I don't have kids, but I don't get that for a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
It seems like there's other things that you could do to get through to a kid like that.
Yes. Especially in 2014.
That said, Tony has a great point. I'm not about telling anyone how to discipline their child. There is a line when it crosses into abuse, but I think a lot of that is cultural. Like if you went, some rural county in North Carolina, what's abuse in that county is extremely different if you go down to Mecklenburg County or something like that. So that I think it's.
You're absolutely right about that, because like a lot of people, like for me, I was more upset with this story when I heard it was that, oh my God, they trying to say this dude trying to abuse his kid. He is not trying to abuse his kid. But the only thing that makes it, I would lean more toward, like, listen, do you need some help? Is because the kid was so young. If that kid had been 8 years old and got that same ass whipping, I'd have been like, hey, that's the way to do it. You know what I mean?
Right. And I want to comment on that too as well, is because it's not like the kid was tagging a church or something, or like vandalizing cars. Is the kid like threw an Xbox remote or something at somebody? But the other thing I think we've got to, what we can do is sometimes in our resistance to because we are worried that the media is just controlling so much of this. We want to almost defend these people at times. And let me just point out this, is that I don't know if Adrian Peterson, he might have thought what he's doing is a good job, but I'm not necessarily ready to classify him as a model parent.
Oh, no, not
He sounds like he's had kids with multiple wives or multiple women, which I'm not going to, I'm not trying to chastise that, because look, people can do that and it's not be problematic,
right?
Or all, like, under good circumstances. But let's not forget that one of his kids that he didn't know about was murdered.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
By some dude.
Yeah.
And now I know that has nothing to do with him.
Right.
And it's separate from this, but you know what? It is involved in his life.
It's got one
so it's not like my man is just going to church on Sunday and giving his kid hugs and bringing him presents all the time. There's some stuff here that ain't like just, I love you, son, so I'm going to whip your ass.
I mean, and that's what, we talked about, me and Vernie, we talked about it You know, and you know, Tony, you know, you got kids, you know what it's about. If you are a big part of the kid's life, it doesn't have to escalate like that. You know, he reacted that way because maybe he saw this, maybe he see this kid maybe 4 or 5 times a year. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on with that. But clearly, he's not that everyday dad. You know what I mean? Clearly, you know. And
it's stressful. Yeah. It's stressful when you're a parent in an everyday situation. Yeah. So I can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine. I'd say this is that it must be easy when you don't have to do it every day. Yeah. But like, I know this is I snap at my children sometimes, and I've done some stuff that I ain't proud of as a human being when it comes to just basic interactions. Yeah. But I mean, you could lose your temper. Yeah. And that dude obviously did.
Yeah, he did. So check this out. So this is the thing. And this is another one of them things that got people split all over the place. Is this an NFL issue, or is this an Adrian Peterson Child Services Peterson family issue, Jason?
This is a child services issue to me.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason why it's an NFL issue is because everything going on around it.
Yes.
If you know, maybe the team or the league would intervene on this, but it'd be a very minimal thing, I believe.
Right.
This is the frustrating part to me because Adrian Peterson in no way correlates or intersects with any of this stuff that's going on with Ray Rice and Greg Hardy. Mm-hmm. And the reason it's brought up is because it's a football player, it's, you know, a violent thing that's going on, and it's convenient, it's cheap, and it's easy.
Right.
That's what leads. That's what's been leading anyway.
Yes. So Tony,
I think that I want to know, Q. I think that's an excellent question. Mm-hmm. You know, is this a legal issue or is this an NFL issue? Right. And what at first I was thinking for a long time, I thought that let the legal system play out, and we'll base our decisions on that. But the more that we get into this, the more I'm getting away from that position because of this, is that the legal system, and you should know this because you're a black man, and you want to talk about the legal system being just, is not necessarily always the best thing to follow suit with. The second thing is that like, what if somebody does, look, we know a lot of scenarios where people commit real crimes and do some real screwed up shit, but don't get in trouble for it with the legal process because either they have the means to avoid it or something like this. And so this is where I've started to go the other way on this a little bit, is that, you know what, the NFL has become, they've made themselves such an important part of our lives. They've made themselves such a big business. They wanted all of this. They want that money. They want people talking about it on Sundays. That they cannot endorse if like people getting off on technicalities. Right. They just basically at some point are going to have to say this, is that if you do anything that in any way poorly reflects on this, is that being in the NFL is a privilege. Yeah. It's not a right. It's a privilege. And so anything that hurts our bottom line, we got to think about. I mean, you know, sorry.
Nike has dropped sponsorship on Adrian Peterson. Radisson talking about pulling out for, you know, and you know, and these guys are in the middle of building this multi-billion-dollar stadium, you know, and so this is what I'm thinking. And we'll end it with this. Should the NFL just distance themselves from all of these guys and just start over fresh? Just like just sever the whole entire relationship, and then, you know, give them some time off, 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years, I don't know, and then think about letting them come back. I mean, all of them: Ray McDonald, Greg Hardy, Ray Rice. Who was the guy from Kansas City? I forget what his name was. But yeah, all
the guy that killed himself.
No.
That guy. That was the same stuff though. That was just last year.
Yeah,
but the other side of the coin.
Yeah,
my man killed himself in the parking lot after he got in a fight with his girlfriend or something crazy like that.
So I'm thinking they just gonna have to just like take a loss on this. So they just gonna have to just like sever all the relationships and just cut their losses and just be like, okay, we moving in a different direction. And the rest of us as fans, we're gonna have to just deal with it. I mean, it's a bitter pill to swallow because we love Greg Hardy and Adrian Peterson. We love these guys, but look, they made mistakes, man. You know, they're gonna have to learn from them.
I think there's a way that the NFL can win from this. And what I suggest is that, look, America is a very forgiving culture. like we actually have a lot. Look, Bill Clinton right now is like a superstar in American society. And just 14 years ago, my man was just like about to get impeached over doing something that was like everybody does when you're president. Yeah. So like what we are forgiving culture is that American culture is better with people that say they're sorry and own up to stuff than they are. And I think that's where the NFLs look bad is that it's just owned up that we're not perfect. Well, but here's what I think you do. I think the NFL says this: we're not on the favor of cutting ties with these people forever. We are on the path to rehabilitation. And I say you trot out Brandon Marshall out there and you say, look, this guy, everybody's ready to cast him to the side. Yeah. Turns out my man's got a mental health issue, and we're here to support these people, not in the way of paying them and rewarding them for bad behavior, but we're here to rehabilitate and use our resources to be a good entity in society. All of a sudden they say that they're sorry, and that's what we're working for. You wrap a bow on this and give Roger Goodell a damn raise.
Yeah, I like it. What do you think, Jason? I like it though.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that kind of what you said kind of mirrors the conclusion we came to over at Carolina Pro Football, and that's not necessarily give them 3 or 4 years, but just make it mandatory that, hey, if you're involved in an incident, you need to take some time off, take a year off, because obviously if you're in this situation, whether you're guilty or innocent or whatever you did, you have to realize you put yourself in a position to be in that situation. You have issues, you need to figure that out. And you and like Tony said, hey, put Brandon Marshall's face on it, say, hey, you get mandatory counseling, mental health issues if you need it, and you're on this suspended list or some other type of contrivance that they come with. Hey, interviews are over, we're not doing anymore. Right. The whole Führer's done. Hey, this is the rule, this is how it works.
I like it.
And you get paid. Yeah. Okay, you'd have to get paid. Otherwise, you punch in the player. That's
damn, they should just bring us in.
You know what I mean? Look, I'm about that life. You know what I mean? Look, we're coming up with, we solving their problems. You know what I mean? We solving their problems. Listen, I want to thank you guys, man, and Jason, for putting this together. Listen, because I mean, I don't know. It seemed like we've been talking about this for like months, right? You know what I mean? It's like, but listen, I think after this one right here, I think we got real deep in this one. We covered a lot of bases with this one. Hopefully we can move on, and really focus on football. And because our Carolina Panthers actually got a good start for the first time in a long time. I'm feeling real good about the team, and it's so strange that the minute something really, really good happens, then something bad happens. You know what I mean? So it is crazy. But again, I want to thank you for thinking of this and and getting us together. I appreciate it. I want to also give a shout out to my boy Justin Merkwa, who no matter how much of a short announcement that I give, he does not ever miss a live TeamBoydTV event ever. He is like always there. That's my dude right there. I appreciate it. Hey, Tony, tell everybody how they can get at you, man, going forward.
All right. You can always look up the professor at CarolinaCatChronicles.com. Follow me on Twitter, cat_chronicles, for all the fan perspective when it comes to the Carolina Panthers. Is that what we do is very plain and simple. I'm not a journalist. I'm a fan. But what that entails is me following the NFL closely. I've got a couple of the crew, the C3 crew, same way. So we always tackle it from that fan perspective, that very opinionated angle, and we just own it. Yeah. Two other things is this: Tuesday nights, 10 o'clock, check out the C3 podcast where we are always discussing the Carolina Panthers. And Wednesday nights, we just unleashed Southbound and Down, which is an NFC roundtable podcast. NFC South, excuse me, be specific, NFC South, because we don't want to go like you guys at TeamBoydTV Live. You guys so much, man, you guys have a broad spectrum, and that requires so much. So we're trying to find our own niche, and we drilled down, and we got the Panthers and NFC South.
The first episode was hilarious. I thought you guys did a really good job with it. It was pretty good. I like the concept.
Thanks a lot.
It's dope. All right, Jason, listen, your first time rocking with us, man. Appreciate you coming through. Let everybody know how they can find you.
Oh man, it's having a great time. Thanks for putting it together. I reached out to you, but you put it all together. So the hats off to you, man. You deserve all the credit.
Right.
We appreciate you having us. But you can find me over at at Carolina Pro Football Podcast. That's at carolinaprofootball.com.
Yes.
And we broadcast every Thursday, and it comes out that morning to be ready if you got iPod or your iPhone or
Yes.
whatever you use, your Android device.
Pretty dope.
And just go over there and you can hit us up. There's links for Twitter, Facebook, the whole nine. So that's the easiest way. carolinaprofootball.com.
Nice. Hey, I just got a tweet from our buddy, the Voice 2525. Listen, you were real quiet because normally, Voice, you are not a quiet guy, and you've been real quiet during the show. So I didn't know you were here, but yeah, Voice is in the building. I want to give a shout out to the Voice for supporting what we do at Team Boyd TV as well. And like I want to do this before we leave because this season, the support that we've been getting from everybody, I mean, even guys like you, Tony, and you, Jason, and so a lot of other YouTubers and people who are doing their blogs and podcasts, the support for Team Boyd TV has been overwhelming. And we are having a lot of fun. We're now doing 4 live broadcasts a week. We got Team Boyd TV live on Wednesday night. We got Team Boyd TV Game Time on Tuesday night. I want to give a shout out to the crew, Big Q, JB, Fernie B. Without them, that's my team. I love them to death. They're my people. But you guys know you can follow me on Twitter at Team Boyd TV, and we get it cracking every Sunday on Twitter. Have a lot of fun. And all my Panther Nation people, Panther Nasty, I got Tony here, and Joey, and Voice, and T Money, and all my people. This is the Black and Blue Podcast, man. We're going to go ahead and get up out of here. Thank you guys again, Voice and Justin, for joining us. And we out. All right. And